I said it casually, but Aunt Colleen froze like she had heard her name called in criminal court. Her champagne glass trembled, spilling a single drop onto the white tablecloth. My mother forced a smile, but I knew my aunt understood exactly what tomorrow meant. Not just a wedding, but a meeting with a probate lawyer about the money she had hidden for 2 years. Right then, my phone buzzed. A new credit inquiry. Not me, but my name. My name is Hazel Turner. And for the last 7 years, I have made a living out of finding things that do not add up. I am 33 years old, and my official title is Compliance Coordinator at Crescent Ridge Compliance Group in Minneapolis. It is a dry, unsexy job title that usually makes people's eyes glaze over at cocktail parties. But the reality of my work is much sharper. I spend 40 hours a week hunting for the crack in the foundation, the signature that does not match the timestamp, the expense report that tries to hide a weekend in Vegas as a client dinner. I am paid to notice the tremors before the earthquake hits. I thought I had left that mindset back at my desk in the cities when I drove 2.5 hours north to Duluth for my brother's wedding. I told myself I was just a sister this weekend. I was just a guest. I was just Hazel, the quiet one who moved away, coming home to watch Evan marry the girl of his dreams at the Harborstone Hotel. But habits are hard to break, especially when the air in the room feels heavy with secrets. The rehearsal dinner was in full swing in the Gitchagumi room, a space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the black, churning expanse of Lake Superior. The room smelled of roasted garlic, expensive lilies, and old money. Not our money, of course. My parents did not have the kind of capital required to rent a ballroom at the Harborstone. This was supposed to be a split cost, something my Aunt Colleen had generously offered to manage to take the stress off my mother. I was standing near the edge of the open bar, nursing a club soda with a lime twist. I watched them, my family. They looked like a picture from a magazine advertisement for the perfect American life. My brother Evan was laughing, his head thrown back, his arm draped casually over the shoulders of his best man. He looked golden, untouched by the kind of crushing anxiety that keeps normal people awake at 3 a.m. He had that specific confidence of a man who has never truly had to clean up his own mess. And then there was Aunt Colleen. She was holding court near the center of the room, wearing a dress that was perhaps a shade too bright for a rehearsal dinner, a shimmering champagne color that competed with the bride's mother. Colleen was my mother's younger sister, but she acted like the matriarch. She was gesturing with a crystal flute, her voice rising above the ambient jazz music as she recounted how difficult it had been to secure the specific orchids on the tables. I walked over. I do not know why I did it. Maybe it was the instinct that kicks in when I see a ledger that looks too perfect. Maybe it was just the exhaustion of playing the role of the invisible, grateful daughter. "It is going to be a beautiful day," Colleen said, beaming at me as I approached. Her smile was tight, the kind that shows teeth but does not reach the eyes. "Everything is finally coming together. Hazel, aren't you excited for Evan?" The group around her, my mother, a couple of cousins, and the wedding planner all turned to look at me, expecting the standard platitude. They wanted me to say, "Yes, it is wonderful." They wanted me to nod and fade back into the wallpaper. Instead, I looked Colleen directly in the eyes. I kept my face completely neutral, the same expression I wear when I slide a non-compliance report across a desk to a nervous junior executive. "I can't wait for tomorrow," I said. The reaction was instantaneous and visceral. To anyone else, it was just a sentence, a generic expression of sisterly excitement, but Aunt Colleen stood there and froze. It was not a pause, it was a malfunction. Her body went rigid, as if I had just reached into her chest and squeezed her lungs. The smile didn't drop. It just calcified, turning into a rictus of terror. The champagne flute in her right hand gave a violent jerk. A single bead of golden liquid sloshed over the rim and splashed onto the pristine white tablecloth. It bloomed there like a gunshot wound, a tiny, dark stain on the perfection she had been bragging about. She stared at me. For a second, the mask slipped completely. I did not see my aunt. I saw a woman who was doing mental arithmetic at 1,000 miles per hour, trying to figure out how much I knew. She looked at me like I was a subpoena server who had just walked through the front door. My mother, standing to Colleen's left, moved with the speed of a striking cobra. She stepped forward and clamped her hand around my upper arm. Her fingers dug into my bicep, hard enough to bruise. "Hazel," she hissed, her voice low and laced with a desperate warning. "Do not say things like that today. Not today." "Like what?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "I just said, I am excited for the wedding," but my mother's eyes were darting around the room, checking to see if anyone important had noticed Colleen's slip. "You know what I mean," Mom whispered, her tone shifting from warning to a plea. "Don't cause drama. Everyone is happy. Just let us be happy." I pulled my arm away from her grip. "I am perfectly happy." "Mom." I wasn't, though. I was vibrating with adrenaline. Because Colleen's reaction confirmed everything I had only suspected in the abstract. You do not freeze like a deer in headlights when someone mentions tomorrow, unless you are terrified of what the sun is going to bring up. Colleen regained her composure, but the damage was done. She set her glass down on the table, her hand shaking just enough to make the crystal click against the wood. "Yes, well," she stammered, her voice an octave higher than usual. "It is going to be a long day. I should check on the seating charts." She turned and walked away too fast, nearly bumping into a waiter. I watched her go. My heart was hammering against my ribs. A slow, heavy thud. I had thrown a rock into the bushes, and something big and ugly had moved in the dark. My mother gave me one last glare, a look that said, "You are ruining this," before chasing after her sister. I needed air. The room suddenly felt suffocating, the smell of the lilies cloying and sweet like a funeral parlor. I turned away from the party and headed toward the glass doors that led to the terrace. As I walked, my clutch purse buzzed against my hip. I ignored it at first. I wanted to get outside. I pushed through the heavy doors and stepped out into the Duluth night. The wind off Lake Superior was brutal, a cold slap that stripped the heat from my skin in seconds. It was late October, and the lake was already thinking about winter. Below me, the water was a vast, distinctive void, blacker than the sky. I walked to the railing and gripped the cold metal. My knuckles turned white. Tomorrow, for them. Tomorrow was the ceremony, the vows, the cake cutting, the celebration of Evan Turner, the prince of the family. For me, tomorrow was 9 a.m. Tomorrow was a scheduled video conference with a probate attorney regarding my grandmother's estate, an estate that Aunt Colleen had been the executor of for the last 2 years. An estate that was supposed to be simple but had somehow become a black box of delays and vague excuses. I had pushed for the meeting. I had demanded the accounting. And Colleen knew it. That was why she had frozen. She knew the clock was ticking down. My purse buzzed again. Long, insistent vibrations. I sighed and opened the clasp. I pulled out my phone, the screen glowing bright and harsh in the darkness. There were 2 notifications. The first was from my credit monitoring app, a red triangle icon. New hard inquiry detected. My stomach dropped. A hard inquiry only happens when you are applying for new debt, a loan, a credit card, a mortgage. I was standing on a balcony in a hotel in Duluth. I was not applying for anything. I unlocked the phone with a trembling thumb and tapped the notification. Inquiry source, North Star Lending Services. Date today. Time 8:45 in the evening, 20 minutes ago. While I was standing in the ballroom, while I was watching my brother laugh, someone had used my social security number to run a credit check. I felt a wave of nausea. Identity theft is not just a nuisance. In my line of work, it is a professional hazard. If my credit tanks, my security clearance at work gets flagged, this was not just money, this was my career. Then I saw the second notification. It was an email that had just landed in my personal inbox. It was marked with high priority. Subject: urgent payment past due. Harborstone Event Services. I frowned. I stared at the screen, the wind whipping my hair across my face. Harborstone. The hotel we were currently standing in, I tapped the email. It opened slowly, the signal weak out here on the balcony. Dear Ms. Turner, we are writing to inform you that the second installment for the Turner-Bennett wedding reception financing plan is now 5 days past due. As per the agreement signed on August 15th, failure to remit the payment of $4,500 by midnight tonight will result in the cancellation of vendor services for the scheduled event tomorrow. Please click the link below to process payment immediately. I stopped breathing. $4,500. My name, Ms. Turner. I had not signed anything. I had not agreed to pay for the reception. Evan and my parents had told me explicitly that the wedding was covered. Colleen handled the budget, they said. The bride's family chipped in, they said. I scrolled down the email, my fingers numb from the cold. I needed to see the invoice attached. I needed to see the proof. The PDF loaded. It was a financing contract for $25,000 to cover catering and venue rental. The applicant's name, Hazel Marie Turner. The Social Security number listed mine. But it was the billing address that made the world stop spinning. I stared at the screen, blinking to make sure the tears forming in my eyes were from the wind and not the sudden, sharp heartbreak that was slicing through my chest. If I had opened this account, the billing address would be my apartment in Minneapolis. It would be the place where I lived, where I paid my bills, where I had built a life separate from the chaos of this family. But the address on the invoice was not my apartment. It was 412 Oakwood Drive, my parents' house, the house where I grew up, the house where my mail used to go 10 years ago, the house where my mother and father lived. Aunt Colleen didn't just steal my identity. She didn't just use my good credit score because Evans was likely in the trash. She had done it with an address that she could access. She had done it so the bills would go to my parents' house, where she could intercept them, hide them, and keep the game going. I looked back through the glass doors. I could see the warm, golden light of the ballroom. I could see Evan raising a glass. I could see my mother laughing, her hand on Colleen's arm. They were all in there, warm and safe. I looked down at the phone again. The past due notice glared back at me. They weren't just letting me pay for the wedding. They were stealing my future to pay for their party. I swiped the notification away and opened my banking app. I needed to see how deep this rot went. Can't wait for tomorrow, I whispered to the empty lake. My voice sounded strange, hard. It sounded like the voice of a woman who was done being the sister. Tomorrow wasn't a wedding anymore. Tomorrow was an audit. I stared at the glowing screen of my phone until the backlight timed out and left me standing in the dark. The wind coming off the lake was biting, but I did not go back inside. Not yet. I needed the cold. I needed the physical discomfort to ground me, because my mind was already racing backward, connecting dots that I had spent a decade trying to ignore. It should not have surprised me. That was the saddest part. Finding out that my identity had been used to finance a party should have been a shock. But in the ecosystem of the Turner family, it was just a variation on a theme. There has always been a distinct hierarchy in our house, a natural order that everyone accepted as gravity. Evan was the son. He was the golden boy, the protagonist, the one whose gravity held us all in orbit. I was the atmosphere essential for survival, expected to be there, but only noticed when the pressure dropped. I leaned against the freezing railing and closed my eyes, letting a memory from 12 years ago wash over me. It was a Tuesday. Evan was 19. He had been driving our father's sedan, a sturdy, reliable car that Dad loved more than his lawnmower. Evan had taken a turn too fast on a wet road and put the car into a ditch. The front axle was snapped, the frame bent, totaled. I remembered sitting at the kitchen table, doing my college calculus homework, waiting for the explosion. I expected Dad to scream. I expected Mom to cry about insurance premiums. Instead, the front door opened, and they walked in like they were returning from a war zone. Mom was holding Evan's face in her hands, checking him for scratches that did not exist. Dad was patting him on the back, his voice low and soothing. "It is okay, son." Dad had said, "It is just metal. We are just glad you are safe. We will sort it out." 2 weeks later, There was a certified pre-owned SUV in the driveway for Evan. Safer, they said, more robust. They dipped into their savings to ensure he felt secure getting back on the road. 3 years later, it was my turn to ask for help. I had graduated early, working 2 jobs to keep my student loans down. I had found a studio apartment in Minneapolis, a shoebox with a view of a brick wall. But it was mine. I needed $1,200 for the security deposit and the first month's rent. I had $800. I was $400 short. I remembered the phone call perfectly. I stood in the break room of the coffee shop where I was a barista, smelling like stale milk and espresso grounds. I asked Mom if they could loan me the $400. I had a spreadsheet showing how I would pay them back in 6 weeks. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Oh, Hazel," Mom had said, her voice tight. "You know things are tight right now with Evan's tuition, and we just had to fix the roof. You are so smart, honey. You are the resourceful one. You can figure it out. You can figure it out." That was the family motto for Hazel. Evan gets a safety net. Hazel gets a compliment and a dial tone. I did figure it out. I picked up 3 extra shifts, sold my old flute, and ate instant oatmeal for a month. I moved into that apartment, and I never asked them for a dime again. That was the moment I realized that being the stable one was not a badge of honor. It was a curse. It meant they felt comfortable neglecting you because they knew you would survive the neglect. And then there was Aunt Colleen. If Evan was the golden child and I was the resource, Colleen was the broker. She had inserted herself into our immediate family dynamics about 5 years ago, right around the time my grandmother's health began to decline. Colleen did not have children of her own, so she adopted our finances instead. She positioned herself as the pragmatic savior. She was the one who knew which tax forms to file. She was the one who knew a guy at the bank. She was the one who told my parents that they were too stressed to handle the bills and that she would streamline everything for them. I always hated the way she used that word, streamline. It was Colleen who had encouraged my parents to refinance their house to pay off Evan's credit card debt when he tried to start a photography business that failed in 3 months. I had argued against it at Christmas dinner that year. "You are enabling him," I had said. Colleen had looked at me across the turkey, smiling that tight, secretive smile of hers. It was not a smile of warmth. It was the smile of a person who holds the only key to a locked room. "We are family." "Hazel," she had said, her voice dripping with condescension. "We help each other. I am just trying to do what is best for the family legacy. You worry too much about the numbers. Let me handle the details." She always acted like money was a dirty subject that only she was brave enough to touch. She hid everything behind a wall of, "Don't worry about it," and I took care of it. That was why I left. I did not move to Minneapolis just for a job. I moved to get away from the suffocating expectation that I would always be the cleanup crew for Evan's disasters and Colleen's schemes. I kept my visits short. I kept my phone calls brief. I built a wall of professional distance and lived a quiet, compliant life where rules were followed and consequences were real. I had not wanted to come to this wedding. When the invitation arrived, I left it on my counter for a week. I knew what it would be. A weekend of watching Evan be celebrated for doing the bare minimum while I was asked to fix the printer, run errands, or listen to Mom complain about how much everything cost. But then Evan had called me. It was late, and he sounded different, vulnerable. "Hazel, please," he had said. "Kira is amazing. She is the best thing that has ever happened to me. I need you there. I need my sister. Please just come and be happy for me. Do not make it tense. Do not bring up the past. Just come for the joy. Do not make it tense." That was the condition. My presence was requested. But my personality was not. I had agreed. I had told myself I could do it. I would drive up, wear the dusty rose bridesmaid dress, smile for the photos, eat the chicken, and go home. I promised myself I would be a spectator. I would not fix anything. I would not ask questions. I would not be the compliance coordinator. I would just be Hazel, the sister who lives in the city. I looked down at the dark water of Lake Superior again. The irony was bitter. I had come here determined to stay out of their mess, and they had dragged me into the center of it before I even unpacked my suitcase. They did not just want me to witness the wedding, they wanted me to subsidize it. I shivered, the cold finally seeping through my coat. I could not stay out here all night. If I stayed away too long, Mom would come looking, or worse, Colleen would get suspicious that I was doing exactly what I was doing, checking the math. I pushed off the railing and turned back toward the hotel. I wiped the wind tears from my eyes and composed my face. I had to go back in there and act like I did not know that there was a $25,000 loan with my social security number on it. I had to play dumb until 9 in the morning. I reached for the door handle, but before I could pull it, my phone buzzed again in my hand. I hesitated. I did not want to look. I knew, with the instinct of a person who has spent a lifetime bracing for impact, that it was not good news. I lifted the phone. New message from Mom. I stared at the preview on the lock screen. The words were bright and innocent, glowing against the background photo of my cat. Hazel, honey, I know you are relaxing, but could you meet me for breakfast early tomorrow? There are just a few final vendor payments that need to clear before the ceremony, and my card is acting up again. I need you to stand in and clear a few things, just temporarily. Evan will pay you back after the honeymoon. I felt a laugh bubble up in my throat, but it was a dark, jagged thing, just temporarily. Evan will pay you back. It was the same script, the same play. They were not asking. They were informing me of my role. They assumed that because I had a job, because I was single, because I was the stable one, I was an endless resource to be tapped whenever their math did not work out. But they had made a mistake. They thought they were texting the daughter who ate oatmeal for a month to avoid asking for help. They thought they were texting the girl who believed "you can figure it out" was a lesson in character building. They did not realize they were texting a compliance officer who had just found a fraudulent hard inquiry on her credit report. I did not reply. I slid the phone into my pocket. I opened the door and stepped back into the warmth of the rehearsal dinner. The jazz music was still playing. The laughter was still loud. Colleen was still holding her court near the bar, her back to me. I walked toward them, not as the sister, but as the witness. Sure, Mom, I thought, I will handle the payments, but I'm going to check the receipts first. The sun rose over Duluth with a deceptively cheerful brightness, casting a glittering net of light across the choppy surface of Lake Superior, inside the Harborstone Hotel. However, the atmosphere was less serene and more akin to a military command center run by people who had lost the radio frequency. I had barely managed to swallow a cup of lukewarm hotel coffee before the demands began. It started the moment I stepped out of the elevator into the lobby. My mother was there, flanked by 2 bellhops and a very stressed-looking florist. When she saw me, her face did not light up with maternal affection. It lit up with the relief of a general who had just spotted a fresh supply truck. "Hazel, thank goodness," she said, bypassing a greeting entirely. "We have a situation with the hydrangeas." I stopped, my travel mug warm in my hand. "Good morning to you too. Mom, what is wrong with the flowers?" "They are here, but the delivery driver will not unload them until the balance is cleared," she said, gesturing frantically toward a van idling in the porte cochere. "My card is doing that silly thing again. You know how the bank gets when we travel. It is flagging everything as suspicious activity. I have been on hold with customer service for 20 minutes. She thrust a crumpled invoice toward me. "Can you just run over there and tap your card?" she asked, her voice breezy, as if she were asking me to pass the salt rather than cover a significant expense. "It is just the final deposit. I will write you a check as soon as I get off the phone with the bank." I looked at the invoice. $850. "Mom," I said, keeping my voice low, "you said the budget was fully handled. Why is the card declining for $800? "It is a security freeze, Hazel," she snapped, her stress fracturing her composure for a second before she smoothed it over. "Do not make this a federal case. The flowers are wilting in the truck. Just handle it, please." I looked at the driver, who was checking his watch. I looked at my mother, whose eyes were wide and pleading. yet underscored with that familiar expectation the assumption that I was the safety valve. I walked over to the driver. I pulled out my card. I paid the $850. As the transaction processed, a notification popped up on my watch. Another deduction from my savings. My stomach tightened. It was not the money itself. I could afford $800. It was the principle. It was the ease with which they reached into my pocket because they knew I would not let the wedding crash and burn. By noon, the small favors had accumulated into a landslide. I was sent to pick up 3 forgotten tuxedos from a rental shop across town because Evan was too busy bonding with his groomsmen. I had to front the security deposit for the rental van because the best man had left his wallet in the room. I was asked to tip the catering staff for the setup because my father did not have cash on him. Every time I pulled out my wallet, I felt a little more transparent. I was not a guest. I was an ATM with a pulse. Around 2 in the afternoon, I found Evan in the hotel bar. He was sitting in a leather booth, laughing at something on his phone. A half-empty IPA in front of him. He looked relaxed. The picture of a man who knew the world would bend to accommodate him. "Hey, Hayes," he said when I walked up. He reached out and snagged my wrist, pulling me into a side hug that smelled of expensive cologne and hops. "Mom said you were running around like crazy. You are a lifesaver." "Seriously?" "I am not a lifesaver, Evan," I said, pulling away gently. "I am a compliance coordinator who is currently out about $1,200 in incidental costs. Mom keeps saying her card is frozen." Evan waved his hand dismissively. "Yeah, the banks are a nightmare. Don't worry about it. I will square up with you after we get back from Bora Bora. You know I'm good for it." He smiled, that charming, boyish grin that had gotten him out of speeding tickets and failing grades his entire life. "Evan," I said, looking him dead in the eye, "are you good for it? Because I saw the guest list. I saw the venue. This is a $60,000 wedding. Do you actually have the money? Or is this all floating on credit?" His smile faltered, just for a fraction of a second. A shadow passed behind his eyes, irritation mixed with defensiveness. "Why do you always have to be so clinical?" he asked, his tone shifting from brotherly to patronizing. "It is my wedding week. Can you stop auditing the family for 5 minutes? Colleen has the budget under control. She is a wizard with this stuff. Just relax. Okay, have a drink." He pushed his beer toward me. "I don't want your beer. Evan, I want to know why Mom is making me pay for flowers if Colleen is such a wizard." "Because you are here," he said simply. "And you can help. Stop being difficult. Hazel, it is unbecoming." Difficult. The word hung in the air between us, in the Turner Family Dictionary. Difficult was the definition of any woman who asked where the money was coming from. I turned and walked away before I said something that would get me disowned before the ceremony even started. I found Aunt Colleen in the hallway outside the ballroom. She was speaking with the hotel's general manager, a tall man with silver hair and a professional, weary expression. Colleen was clutching a thick navy blue folder to her chest. Her knuckles were white. I slowed my pace, stepping into the alcove of a restroom entrance so I could listen. "We just need to make sure the breakout room is available for the cocktail hour," Colleen was saying, her voice pitched in that sweet, reasonable tone she used when she was trying to manipulate someone. "Mrs. Turner?" the manager said, mistaking her for my mother, or perhaps she hadn't corrected him. As I explained, the upgrade for the breakout room was not in the original package. It is an additional $2,000. "That is fine," Colleen said quickly. "Just add it to the bill. Run it on the card on file. The usual account." The manager tapped on his tablet. "The one ending in 4098. "Yes," Colleen said. "That is the one. I authorize it." I felt the blood drain from my face. 4098. That was not my mother's card number. It was not Evan's. And it certainly wasn't Colleen's, given that she had filed for bankruptcy 4 years ago, a fact she thought I didn't know. 4098 were the last 4 digits of the debit card attached to my primary checking account, the account I used for my mortgage, the account that had my entire life savings in it. But she couldn't have that card. It was in my wallet. Unless unless she wasn't using the physical card, unless she had the routing number and checking account number, and she had set up an electronic transfer or a virtual card linked to it. I stepped out of the alcove. Aunt Colleen. She spun around. The folder clutched to her chest jumped as if she had been electrocuted. Her eyes went wide, then instantly narrowed into a mask of delight. Hazel, I didn't see you there. I was just looking for the restroom, I lied. Is everything okay with the venue? Perfect, she said, too loudly. Just ironing out some wrinkles. The manager is being a dear. She turned her body slightly, angling the folder away from me. It was overstuffed. Papers sticking out at haphazard angles. That is a lot of paperwork for a party, I observed, nodding at the folder. Need any help organizing it? You know I do audits for a living. Oh, no, she said, clutching it tighter. It is just my own chaotic system. You would not understand it. It is all chicken scratch. Go get ready for the welcome dinner. Honey, you look tired. She hurried away, her heels clicking rapidly on the marble floor. She didn't look back. I watched her go, my heart hammering a warning rhythm against my ribs. She had authorized a charge on a card ending in 4098. I needed to check my bank, immediately. But before I could pull out my phone, a hand touched my shoulder. I jumped. It was Kira, the bride. She looked beautiful, but pale. Her hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and she was wearing a white sweater that made her look washed out. Hazel, she said softly, do you have a minute? Sure. Kira, what is it? She looked down the hallway where Evan was still drinking in the bar, and then in the other direction where Colleen had vanished. I feel like I'm going crazy, she whispered. Every time I ask about the vendor payments, Evan tells me not to worry. Every time I ask Colleen to see the final tally so I can show my dad, she says she left the binder in her room. My dad is getting suspicious. He offered to pay for the bar tab directly, and Colleen got weirdly defensive. She insisted she had to funnel it through the wedding account to keep the taxes straight. Kira looked up at me, her eyes searching mine for reassurance I could not give. Hazel, does your family have a trust or a foundation? Colleen keeps mentioning the family trust as the source of funds. I almost laughed. A trust. The only thing my family passed down was high blood pressure and an inability to apologize. Kira, I said carefully, we do not have a trust. We have never had a trust. Kira's face fell. That is what I thought. Something feels unclean. Hazel, I feel like I'm walking on a floorboard that is about to snap, and everyone is telling me the cracking sound is just music. Listen to that feeling, I said, my voice grave. Do not sign anything else, Kira, not until after tomorrow. She nodded, looking terrified, and walked away. I went back to my room. I needed isolation. I needed to verify what I had heard in the hallway. I logged into my bank account. The balance looked normal. There was no pending charge for $2,000 yet. But electronic checks, ACH, take time to post. They float in the ether for 24 hours before they land and destroy you. Then, my phone rang. It was 7 in the evening. The screen displayed an unknown number, but the location tag said Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I knew that area code. It was a hub for credit card processing centers and collections. I answered, This is Hazel. This call is from North Star Recovery Services and is being recorded for quality assurance, a monotone male voice said. Am I speaking with Hazel Marie Turner? Speaking, I said, my hand gripping the phone so hard it hurt. Ms. Turner, I am calling regarding your account ending in 772. We show a past due balance of $3,400 for the bridal suite luxury upgrade financing package. We have sent multiple notices to the address on file at 412 Oakwood Drive. 412 Oakwood, my parents' house. Again. I did not authorize that charge, I said, my voice trembling with rage. I did not open that account. Ma'am, the account was opened electronically on September 12th. It was verified with your social security number, date of birth, and the answer to your security question. What was the name of your first pet, Buster, my golden retriever, a dog that died when I was 10? A dog that everyone in my family knew the name of. That is fraud, I said. I am disputing this. I can note your dispute, ma'am, but until a police report is filed, the debt remains valid and will be reported to the credit bureaus tomorrow. Do it, I snapped. Report it. I will see you in court. I hung up. I was shaking. September 12th. That was 6 weeks ago. That was right around the time Colleen told my mom she had found a way to stretch the budget. She hadn't stretched the budget. She had stretched my identity. I couldn't wait for the morning. I couldn't wait for the lawyer. I needed proof now. Physical proof. I left my room. I didn't take the elevator. I took the stairs down to the second floor, where my parents and Colleen were staying. I knew the schedule. Tonight was the welcome cocktails for the out-of-town guests in the main lobby. They would all be there. Colleen loved being the hostess. She would be downstairs, holding a glass of wine, accepting compliments for a party she stole from me. I walked down the hallway. The door to room 214, Colleen's room, was closed. I didn't have a key card. But I knew something about Colleen. She was chaotic. She was the type of person who propped doors open with latches because she was constantly running back and forth. I walked past the room. The door was shut. I turned the corner and saw a housekeeping cart. The maid was down at the other end of the hall. I walked back to Colleen's door. I pushed on it gently. Locked. I swore under my breath. Then I looked down. There, barely visible under the doorframe, was the edge of a white card, a Do Not Disturb sign that had fallen. No, I knelt. It wasn't a sign. The door wasn't fully latched. The heavy security bar at the top, the swing latch, had gotten stuck in the out position, preventing the door from clicking shut completely. It was resting against the frame, leaving a gap of 2 millimeters. Colleen, in her rush to get downstairs to the cocktail hour, had been careless. I pushed. The door swung open silently. I stepped inside. The room was a disaster zone. Clothes were flung over every chair. Shoeboxes were stacked by the TV. And there, on the desk, sat the navy blue folder. It was open. I walked over to it. My breath caught in my throat. I didn't touch it at first. I just looked. The top document was a contract with a catering company. It was for $12,000. I looked at the signature line. It wasn't signed by Colleen. It wasn't signed by Evan. It was signed Hazel M. Turner. But that wasn't the scary part. I reached out and picked up the paper. The signature was shaky. It looked traced. I flipped the page. Underneath it was a piece of translucent tracing paper, and underneath that, my knees almost gave out. It was an old birthday card I had written to Evan 5 years ago. Happy birthday. Bro, love, Hazel. She had kept the card. She had used it to practice. I saw rows and rows of my name, written in Colleen's handwriting, slowly morphing, correcting itself, until it looked almost exactly like mine. She hadn't just stolen my numbers. She had spent hours perfecting the art of becoming me. I pulled out my phone and snapped a picture of the tracing paper. Then I heard the elevator ding down the hall. Voices. Familiar voices. I just need to grab my lipstick. I will be right back. Colleen's voice called out. She was coming back. I was standing in the middle of her room, holding the evidence of her crime, and she was 20 seconds away. I looked at the window. Sealed. I looked at the bathroom. No exit. I looked at the closet. I didn't have a choice. I shoved the papers back into the folder, exactly as they were, and stepped into the narrow closet, pulling the louvered door shut just as the key card beeped in the lock. The door to the room opened. "Stupid latch," Colleen muttered. I held my breath, watching through the slats as my aunt walked into the room, humming a wedding march that sounded more like a funeral dirge. She walked straight to the desk. The morning of the wedding arrived with a heavy leaden sky that pressed down on the Harborstone Hotel, turning the view of Lake Superior into a wall of gray slate. I had barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the practice sheets in Aunt Colleen's folder, my name written over and over again until it stopped looking like a signature and started looking like a sentence. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall, when a sharp rap on the door made me jump. I pulled my robe tighter and walked to the door. I expected housekeeping or maybe my mother coming to ask for another favor, but when I opened it, The hallway was empty. There was no person, just a thick, cream-colored envelope lying on the carpet near the threshold. It was not a wedding invitation. It was not a welcome note. It was a courier packet, the kind that requires a signature, though someone had evidently signed for it at the front desk and slipped it under my door. The return address was a law firm in Chicago I did not recognize, but the red stamp on the front was universal language. Urgent final notice. Prior to litigation. I picked it up. My hands were cold. I tore the tab and slid the contents out. It was a demand letter. Outstanding balance. Lux Event Rentals. Amount due. $7,850. I read the number again. $7,850. I walked backward into the room and sat down at the small desk, flattening the paper with a shaking hand. This was not the financing for the venue. This was not the catering bill. This was a third debt. This was for specialty furniture and vintage decor rentals. I read the paragraph below the amount. Despite multiple attempts to collect payment via the credit card on file, the transaction has been declined. Unless the full balance is remitted by 5 in the afternoon today, we will be forced to file a civil suit for breach of contract and theft of services. A copy of this notice has been sent to the credit bureaus. The air left my lungs. In my line of work, credit is not just a number, it is a key. As a compliance coordinator, I deal with sensitive financial data. I undergo background checks every 2 years. A civil judgment for theft of services or a tanking credit score could trigger a review of my security clearance. If I lost my clearance, I lost my job. Colleen wasn't just spending my money. She was lighting my career on fire to keep Evan warm. I grabbed my phone. I did not call my mother. I did not call Evan. I called the number listed on the letterhead for Lux Event Rentals. It rang 3 times. Accounts receivable. This is Sarah, a woman answered, her voice brisk and unamused. Hi, this is Hazel Turner, I said. My voice was steady, the professional mask sliding into place. I am holding a demand letter from your firm regarding an account I supposedly opened. One moment, Ms. Turner, she said. I heard the clicking of a keyboard. Yes, we have been trying to reach you for weeks. The card on file, a Visa ending in 4098, was declined for the final balance. I know that card, I said, but I did not authorize this charge. I did not sign this contract. I need you to send me the verification logs immediately. Ms. Turner, Sarah sighed, clearly tired of excuses. The contract was signed via DocuSign on September 20th. The IP address for the signature matches the IP address used for the initial inquiry and the deposit payment. Read me the IP location, I demanded. It traces to a residential provider in Duluth, Minnesota, she said. My parents' house. And the email, I asked. What email address was used to verify the digital signature? It is the one on file, she said. hazelnut90@yahoo.com. I froze. I felt a cold prickle of sweat on the back of my neck. That was an email address I had created when I was 12 years old. I hadn't used it in at least 15 years. I had assumed it was deactivated, lost to the digital graveyard. I didn't even know the password anymore. That account is defunct, I said. How did anyone access it to verify a signature? They used the password recovery feature, Sarah said, sounding bored. On September 19th, a password reset was requested. The verification code was sent to the recovery phone number on file, a landline ending in 6642. My parents' home phone number. I closed my eyes. I could see it perfectly. Colleen sitting at the kitchen table in my parents' house, the laptop open. She tries to log into my old email. She hits forgot password. The landline rings in the kitchen. She picks it up, gets the code, resets the password, and suddenly, she is me. She has a valid email address in my name to sign legal contracts. Thank you, Sarah, I said. Please note that this is a case of identity theft and I will be filing a police report. We will pause collection for 48 hours, she said, skeptical. But after that, we proceed. I hung up. My phone felt like a brick in my hand. I looked at the time, 8 in the morning. I dialed my mother. She picked up on the second ring. The background noise was chaotic hairdryers, laughter, the sound of champagne corks popping. "Hazel," she chirped. "Where are you? The makeup artist is here. You need to get down to the bridal suite. Your hair is going to take the longest to fix." "Mom, stop," I said. "I just got a letter from a rental company. Colleen used my old email address and your home phone to sign a contract for $8,000. There was a pause on the line. The background noise seemed to fade as my mother stepped away or covered the phone. "Hazel," she said, her voice dropping to that hushed, frantic whisper she used whenever reality threatened to intrude on her fantasy. "Not now. Please. Not today." "Yes, today," I said. "She hacked my email. Mom, that is a federal crime. She used your landline to do it. Did you know?" "I don't know anything about technical things." My mother deflected. "Colleen said she handled the logistics. Look, honey, it is just paper. It is just a mix-up. We can sort it out next week. Today is your brother's wedding. Do not be the person who ruins this with drama." "Drama," I repeated, my voice rising. "Mom, this is fraud. This is my job on the line." "Your job is fine," she snapped. "You are smart. You always land on your feet. Evan needs this day to be perfect. Can you just swallow it? Just for 24 hours. Swallow it." The words tasted like bile. "Put Evan on," I said. "He is getting shaved," she said. "Put him on." "Mom." A moment later, Evan's voice came on the line. He sounded groggy but happy. "Morning, sis. Ready to party." "Evan," I said. "Colleen forged my signature on a rental contract. $8,000. They are threatening to sue me." He sighed, a long, exasperated exhale. "I know. Okay," he said. The world stopped. "You know," I whispered, "Colleen told me she had to get creative with the financing," Evan said, his voice taking on that wheedling, persuasive tone he used when he wanted to borrow my car. "She said your credit was the only one strong enough to secure the good stuff. Look, Hayes, I didn't want to bother you with it. I knew you would stress out. But I promise, I am going to pay it back. Once the business takes off, or after the wedding gifts come in, we will make it right." "You knew," I said again. "You let her steal my identity because you wanted nicer chairs." "Do not call it stealing," he said, irritated now. "It is family leveraging. We are a team. And honestly, Hazel, you can handle it. You have that fancy corporate job. You have savings. I have nothing right now. Can you just shoulder this for me? Be the big sister, just this once. Just this once. It was never just once. It was the car. It was the rent. It was the emotional labor. And now, it was my legal standing." He wasn't asking for help. He was testing to see if I was still the doormat they had trained me to be. He was checking if the programming still worked. "I see," I said. My voice was very calm. "I understand perfectly. Evan." "Great," he said, relief washing over his words. "You are the best. Seriously. I love you, sis. See you downstairs." "See you," I said. I hung up. I did not go downstairs. I walked over to the desk and opened my laptop. I had 1 hour before the ceremony prep became mandatory. I logged into a legal service portal I used for work referrals. I requested an emergency consultation with a civil litigation attorney in Minneapolis. It was Saturday, but for $300 an hour, you can find someone willing to talk. 15 minutes later, a video window popped up. A man with graying hair and a sharp, attentive face appeared on the screen. The nameplate on his desk said Robert Vance. "Ms. Turner," he said. "I reviewed the summary you sent. You are alleging identity theft involving multiple high-value contracts." "Yes," I said. "I have the demand letters. I have the IP logs from the vendor. I have proof that my old email was accessed using a recovery number I do not control." "And the perpetrator?" he asked. "Do you have a suspect?" I hesitated. Saying it out loud to a stranger made it real. It made it irrevocable. "My aunt," I said. and possibly my brother as an accomplice. Mr. Vance nodded. He didn't look surprised. He looked resigned. Ms. Turner, he said, leaning into the camera. I see this more often than you would think, but I have to ask you a specific question to determine our next move. This level of fraud accessing old emails, knowing the security questions, knowing exactly which bank accounts to link this isn't random, this requires intimate knowledge of your financial history. He paused, taking off his glasses. Does this aunt have a background in finance? Has she ever handled paperwork for you, or does she, perhaps, manage an estate, or a trust that you are a beneficiary of? The question hit me like a physical blow. I thought about the folder in Colleen's room. I thought about the family trust Kira had mentioned. I thought about the grandmother who had passed away 2 years ago, leaving Colleen as the executor because she was good with numbers. My grandmother had left a small inheritance. Colleen had told me it was tied up in probate. She had told me the courts were backed up. She had told me to be patient. Yes, I said, my voice barely a whisper. She manages my grandmother's estate. Then this isn't just about a wedding, Ms. Turner, Mr. Vance said grimly. If she is using your identity to create new debt, she is likely trying to cover a deficit somewhere else. She is plugging a hole. I would bet my license that if we look at that estate's ledger, we will find it is empty. He looked at me with serious eyes. You have a choice. You can go downstairs and be a bridesmaid, or you can authorize me to pull the estate records immediately. But if we do that, there is no going back. The moment we file a motion, the family is at war. I looked at the demand letter on the desk. $7,850. I looked at the mirror. I saw the sister who had always figured it out. Pull the records, I said. And Mr. Vance, I am not going to war. I am going to an execution. I sat at the small desk in my hotel room, transforming the space into a war room. The Do Not Disturb sign was hanging on the outer handle, a flimsy shield against the chaos of the wedding preparations outside. On the hotel stationery, I began to construct a timeline. I had spent my entire adult life auditing strangers, looking for the discrepancies in corporate ledgers that signaled greed or incompetence. I never thought I would be applying those same forensic skills to the people who raised me. I wrote down dates. I wrote down amounts. September 12th, account opened. September 20th, contract signed. October 4th, hard inquiry. The ink looked stark against the white paper. For the first time in my life, I was not looking at my family through the lens of obligation or guilt. I was looking at them as subjects in an investigation. And the data was telling a story that had nothing to do with love and everything to do with exploitation. I needed to confirm the physical movements of the suspect. Digital footprints were one thing, but I needed to place her at the scene of the crime. I took the elevator down to the lobby. The air was buzzing with the arrival of guests. I saw cousins I hadn't spoken to in 3 years, aunts from my father's side who wanted to pinch my cheek and ask why I wasn't married yet. I dodged them all, slipping through the crowd with the efficiency of a ghost. I went straight to the concierge desk. The general manager, the man with the silver hair I had seen earlier, was speaking to a bellhop. I waited for him to finish. "Excuse me," I said. "I am Hazel Turner. I believe we have a few billing matters to clarify for the Turner-Bennett wedding." He turned to me, his professional smile tight. Ms. Turner, your aunt was just here regarding the bar tab. Is there another issue with the card?" "No," I said, keeping my voice light, conversational. "I just wanted to verify something about the previous payments. The deposit that was made back in September. I know my aunt handles the logistics, but I like to keep my own records straight. Do you remember who came in to physically sign the initial venue hold? I was worried she might have sent a courier." The manager chuckled. "Oh, no. Mrs. Turner, your aunt, was very hands-on. She came in person. I remember because she was very specific about the lighting in the ballroom." "What was she wearing?" I asked. It was a strange question, but I played it off with a smile. "We have a bet going about her fashion choices." He thought for a moment. It was a Tuesday, I believe. She was wearing a cream-colored cable-knit sweater, very elegant, and she had these distinct silver bangles that jingled when she signed the papers. And, well, she wears a rather memorable perfume, gardenia. I think my stomach turned over. Cream sweater, silver bangles, gardenia perfume. It was Colleen. It was the uniform she wore when she wanted to project the image of the wealthy, capable matriarch. She had stood at this counter, smelling of flowers, and signed my name on a contract that would ruin my credit score, all while discussing ballroom lighting. I thanked him and walked away, feeling like the floor was tilting beneath my feet. I found a quiet corner in the business center and opened my laptop again. I needed to dig deeper. If she had opened rental contracts and venue financing, what else had she done? I pulled up my full credit report again, scrolling past the big inquiries to the smaller, softer hits. There it was, Klarna Financing, open date October 2nd, a buy now, pay later account. I clicked on the transaction details. It was for a jewelry store in downtown Duluth. The purchase amount was $2,400. I navigated to the jewelry store's website and used the order number from the credit report to track the status. The page loaded. Order diamond drop earrings. Platinum finish. Status delivered. Delivery address: 412 Oakwood Drive. Signed for by C. Turner. My mother didn't wear platinum. She only wore gold. I didn't wear diamond drop earrings. I couldn't afford them. And even if I could, I wouldn't finance them at 20% interest. But I had seen those earrings. I had seen them in the brochure Colleen had been showing off at breakfast. She had called them her little treat for the wedding. Something to match her dress. She had told everyone she bought them at an estate sale. She hadn't bought them at an estate sale. She had bought them with my credit rating. I closed the laptop. The anger was gone, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. This wasn't desperation. Desperation is stealing bread. This was entitlement. This was Colleen deciding that her desire to look rich was more important than my financial survival. But there was one thing that bothered me more than the earrings. The money was bad, but money is fungible. You can sue for money. You can dispute charges. But there was something else in the mix. Something that had been nagging at me since I spoke to the lawyer about the estate. The ring. My grandmother left a sapphire and diamond ring. It was a massive, beautiful piece of jewelry from the 1920s. In her will, she had left it to the first grandson to marry, which meant Evan. It was supposed to be the ring he gave to Kira. But Kira wasn't wearing an antique sapphire. She was wearing a modern princess-cut diamond. I found Evan in the groom's suite. He was getting his tie adjusted, surrounded by his friends who were already half drunk. "Evan, can I borrow you for a second?" I asked from the doorway. "Not now. Hayes," he said, checking his reflection. "We have photos in 10 minutes. It is about Grandma's ring," I said. He paused. He waved his friends out of the room. They filed past me, smelling of whiskey and hairspray. "What about it?" Evan asked, turning to face me. He looked annoyed. "Why isn't Kira wearing it?" I asked. "Grandma left it for this exact day." Evan shifted his weight. He looked at the floor, then at the ceiling. "You know how it is. Kira wanted something new, something that was just ours. We decided to keep the heirloom safe." "Safe where?" I pressed. "Colleen has it," he said. "She is keeping it in her safe deposit box. She is going to bring it out for the ceremony later, just for the detail shots. The photographer wants a picture of it on the bouquet." "You have seen it?" I asked. "Recently." "Hazel, stop," Evan snapped. "Why are you so obsessed with this? Colleen has it. She has been taking care of everything." "God, you are killing the vibe." "I am just asking," I said. "Well, stop asking. It is handled." He pushed past me and walked out into the hall. He believed it. That was the tragedy of Evan. He believed the lie because the lie was comfortable. I needed to find Colleen. I tracked her down in the ballroom. She was directing the waitstaff on how to fold the napkins. She looked commanding, authoritative, the perfect organizer. I walked up to her. "Aunt Colleen." She turned. Her smile was instantaneous, but her eyes were alert. Hazel, isn't this room breathtaking? Look at the light. It is beautiful, I said. Evan told me you are bringing Grandma's ring down for the photos later. The photographer is asking for it. I made up the part about the photographer. I wanted to see her face. For a split second, the mask slipped. It wasn't fear this time. It was calculation. She looked like a chess player realizing she had lost a pawn but could still save the queen. Oh, the ring, she said, her voice dropping to a tragic whisper. She reached out and touched my arm, her fingers cold. I didn't want to upset Evan on his big day. I haven't told him yet. Told him what? I asked. It is misplaced, she said. The word hung in the air. Misplaced. Misplaced? I repeated. It is a $10,000 sapphire. Colleen, you don't misplace it like a set of car keys. I think it happened when I moved houses last year, she said, shaking her head sadly. Boxes got mixed up. Movers are so careless. I have looked everywhere. Hazel, I am sick over it. Absolutely sick. But we cannot ruin the wedding with this news. You understand, don't you? We have to protect Evan. She looked at me with wide, wet eyes, begging me to be a co-conspirator. Protect Evan, I said flatly. Exactly, she said. We will look for it again next week. I am sure it will turn up. She squeezed my arm and turned back to the waiter. Make sure the pleats are facing outward. Please. I stood there, watching her back. She wasn't sick over it. She wasn't sad. She was calm. She had practiced that line. It will turn up. No, it wouldn't. Because things that are sold to pay off gambling debts or secret loans do not turn up. They get melted down. I felt a tap on my shoulder. It was Kira again. She looked even paler than before. She pulled me behind a pillar, away from Colleen's line of sight. Hazel, she whispered, I heard you talking to Evan. About the ring. About everything, she said. My dad, he is furious. He asked Evan for the final vendor receipts this morning. He wanted to reimburse your parents for the flowers. Evan got weird. He said the receipts were in processing. My dad is a CFO. Hazel, he knows what in processing means. It means they don't exist. Kira looked at me, her eyes tearing up. My dad told me 6 months ago that he wanted full financial transparency before I married into this family. He ran a background check on Evan, and it was clean. But he told me, Kira, look at the people around him. Apples do not fall far from the tree. I got mad at him then. But now, she looked over at Colleen, who was laughing with the band leader. Why is everything so secretive? Hazel, why does your aunt have 5 different folders? Why does Evan look like he's going to throw up every time money is mentioned? Because, I said, deciding in that moment to give her a piece of the truth. They are playing a shell game, Kira, and I think they just ran out of shells. What do I do? She asked. You wait, I said. Just wait until tomorrow morning. Do not sign the marriage license until after 9 o'clock. Why 9? Because that is when the truth arrives, I said. She nodded and slipped away. I looked down at my phone. I had set up an alert on the estate portal, the secure website where the probate court records and asset lists for my grandmother's estate were stored. Mr. Vance, the lawyer, had given me access credentials 30 minutes ago. The screen lit up. Security alert. New login detected. User executor C. Turner. Time, right now. I looked across the room. Colleen was not looking at her phone. She was talking to the florist. But her purse, a large designer tote bag, was sitting on a chair near the wall, and the top of the bag was open. I could see the glow of a tablet screen inside. She wasn't logging in. She had given her login to someone else, or she had an automated script running. No, I looked closer. Evan was standing near the chair. He was checking his phone, but his other hand was inside Colleen's bag. My brother. He wasn't just a passive beneficiary. He was active. He was logging into the estate portal. Why to approve a transfer to delete a record I watched as he tapped the screen twice, then withdrew his hand and walked away. Looking casual, looking golden. He had just authorized something. I opened the portal on my own phone. I refreshed the transaction log. Pending transfer $5,000. Destination Harborstone Event Services. Memo family expense. He was draining the last drops of our grandmother's legacy to pay for the booze at his own wedding. I didn't scream. I didn't run over and tackle him. I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. It was the calm of the executioner who has checked the rope and found it strong. I took a screenshot. Then I sent a text to Mr. Vance. They are moving funds now. Do we have enough? His reply came back 10 seconds later. We have everything. I will see you at 9. I put the phone away. I watched Colleen fluff a napkin. I watched Evan high-five a groomsman. They thought tomorrow was their coronation. They had no idea that tomorrow was my demolition day. I sent the text message to the group chat titled, Turner Family Updates, a chat usually reserved for flight arrival times, and photos of flower arrangements at 4:15 in the afternoon. My room, now, essential wedding logistics. I knew they would come. They were all terrified of a logistical failure. They thought I was going to tell them that the cake had collapsed or the band had canceled. They walked into my hotel room 5 minutes later, still riding the high of the day's earlier festivities. My mother was flushed, holding a half-empty glass of Prosecco. My father looked tired but dutiful, the eternal wallet-bearer. Evan was checking his watch, clearly annoyed at the interruption to his leisure time, and Aunt Colleen breezed in last, smelling of gardenias and hairspray, her smile fixed and bright. Make it quick, Hazel, Evan said, leaning against the doorframe. I have to meet the guys at the cigar lounge in 20 minutes. Close the door. Evan, I said. My voice was not loud. It was not emotional. It was the voice I used when I had to inform a CEO that his company was non-compliant with federal regulations and that the fines would be in the millions. Evan frowned but pushed the door shut until it clicked. What is this about? My mother asked, sensing the shift in atmospheric pressure. Is it the seating chart again? I did not answer. I walked over to the small round table near the window. I had arranged the papers in a precise fan, like a winning poker hand that I hated holding. The demand letter from the rental company, the financing agreement for the venue, the receipt for the diamond earrings, the screenshot of the estate transfer Evan had made an hour ago. Explain, I said. I stepped back, giving them space to look. Colleen was the first to move. She walked over to the table, her heels sinking slightly into the plush carpet. She looked down at the documents. Her face did not crumble. It did not pale. She simply tilted her head, as if she were inspecting a menu that had a typo. Oh, Hazel, she sighed, a sound of disappointment. I told you my filing system was messy. You really shouldn't have gone snooping through my things. It is rude. Those aren't your things, Colleen, I said. That is my name on a $7,000 contract for chairs. That is my social security number on a venue loan, and that, I pointed to the screenshot, is a transfer from Grandma's estate that Evan authorized. My mother stepped forward, squinting at the papers. When the realization hit her, she didn't look at Colleen, she looked at me. Her face crumpled, tears springing to her eyes instantly. Hazel, she wailed, her voice trembling. How could you do this right now? We are 24 hours away from the ceremony. You are trying to shame this family. You are trying to make us look like criminals. You are committing crimes, Mom, I said. This is identity theft. This is embezzlement. Watch your mouth, my father snapped. He had been standing by the TV, but now he stepped forward, his face reddening. We are family. We do not use words like embezzlement. Then what do you call using my credit history to buy earrings for Colleen? I asked, pointing to the receipt. What do you call taking $5,000 from a dead woman's trust to pay for a party? It is not taking, Evan shouted, pushing off the wall. It is borrowing. We are going to put it back. Once the wedding gifts come in, once the business loans clear, everything gets paid back. You are making a mountain out of a molehill because you are jealous. Jealous. I looked at him. Jealous of what? Evan, of being $25,000 in debt for a party I can't afford. We raised you, my father interrupted. his voice heavy with the self-righteousness of a martyr. We fed you. We clothed you. We paid for your braces. We co-signed your first student loan. And now, when the family needs a little flexibility, when your brother needs a little support to start his life, you treat us like enemies. Is this how you repay us by auditing us? I felt a cold laugh building in my chest. The ledger, the eternal ledger of the parent-child relationship. I paid off that student loan 8 years ago. Dad, I said. I paid for my own car. I paid for my own apartment. I have never asked you for a cent since I was 22, and you think that gives you the right to forge my signature? It is not forgery if it is family, Colleen said. She had moved to the window and was looking out at the lake, unbothered. It is implied consent. Hazel, I am the executor. I am the manager. I made an executive decision to leverage the strongest assets in the portfolio to ensure the success of the event. You are an asset. You should be proud that your credit is good enough to help. She turned to face me, her expression benign, almost pitying. You are so sensitive, honey. You always have been. You see black and white where there is nuance. I am just organizing the cash flow. It is a bridge loan, essentially, internal family financing. It is fraud, I repeated, and I am not an asset. I am a person. You are being dramatic, my mother sobbed. You are going to ruin everything. What will the Bennetts think if the police show up? What will Kira think? Kira already knows something is wrong, I said. And the police are the least of your worries right now. The creditors are coming. I took a breath. This was the moment, the point of no return. Here is what is going to happen, I said. My voice was steady, despite the shaking of my hands. I have already placed a freeze on all 3 of my credit bureau files. No new accounts can be opened. Colleen's eyes flickered. That was the first sign of genuine annoyance. I have filed a dispute with the credit card companies for the jewelry and the venue, I continued. And I have contacted a lawyer regarding the unauthorized access to the estate. You called a lawyer. Evan stepped toward me, invading my personal space. He was a big man, and he used his size to intimidate. On your own family. Are you insane? I am protecting myself, I said, holding my ground. And unless you want me to file a formal police report for identity theft within the next hour, you are going to sign a document admitting that these debts are yours, not mine, and you are going to return the $5,000 to the estate account immediately. We can't, Evan spat. The money is already gone. The check to the caterer cleared 10 minutes ago. If we reverse it, the food doesn't show up tomorrow. Then you better find another way to pay for the chicken. Evan, I said, because I am not paying for it. You are selfish, my mother hissed. She had stopped crying and was now looking at me with pure venom. You are a selfish, ungrateful girl. We should have known. You always held yourself apart. You always thought you were better than us. I don't think I'm better, I said. I just think I shouldn't be robbed. Nobody is robbing you, Evan roared. He slammed his hand down on the table, making the papers jump. We are fixing a temporary cash flow problem. Why can't you just wait? Why do you have to be such a bitch about it right now? The room went silent. The slur hung in the air. I looked at my brother, the golden boy, the one who got the car, the one who got the forgiveness. Because, I said softly, I am done being the collateral damage for your life, Evan. If you do this, my father said, his voice low and threatening, if you bring the police into this hotel, or if you sue your aunt, you are done. You understand? You are not welcome in this house. You are not welcome in this family. I think, I said, looking at the 4 of them, the united front of dysfunction, that I made my peace with that the moment I saw my signature on a contract I didn't sign. You are bluffing, Colleen said. She walked back from the window. She picked up the demand letter and ripped it in half. You won't do it. You won't humiliate your brother on his wedding day. You don't have the stomach for it. You are a compliance officer. Hazel, you follow rules. You don't blow up buildings. She dropped the torn paper on the floor. We are leaving now, Colleen announced. We have a rehearsal dinner to attend. Hazel, Wash your face, put on some lipstick, and stop this nonsense. We will discuss the finances next week." She turned and marched to the door. My mother followed, shooting me a look of pure disgust. My father shook his head, as if I were a hopeless case, and walked out. Evan was the last to leave. He stopped at the door. He turned back, his face red, his eyes manic. "You ruined this for me," he whispered, "and I will never forgive you." "You already ruined it, Evan," I said. "You just haven't realized it yet." He slammed the door. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the small room. I stood there for a long time, listening to the silence. I looked at the torn paper on the floor. Colleen was right about one thing: I was a compliance officer. I followed rules, but she forgot the other part of my job. When the rules are broken, I am the one who writes the report that shuts the whole operation down. I sat down on the bed. My legs were shaking now. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a cold, hollow ache. They hadn't apologized. Not once. They hadn't even pretended to be sorry. They had just negotiated, threatened, and denied. I checked my phone. No messages from Mr. Vance yet. I needed to get out of the room. I needed to breathe. I went down to the hotel gym. It was empty. I ran on the treadmill for an hour, running until my lungs burned, until the physical pain drowned out the voice of my father telling me I was ungrateful. When I came back upstairs, it was nearly 11 at night. The hotel was quiet. The rehearsal dinner was over. I walked down the hallway to my room. I reached into my purse for my key card. I stopped. The door to my room was ajar. Just a crack. I knew I had pulled it shut. I had heard the latch click when I left for the gym. I always checked the door. It was habit. I pushed the door open slowly, my heart hammering in my throat. The room was dark. "Hello?" I called out. Silence. I reached inside and flipped the light switch. The room looked normal at first glance. The bed was made. The curtains were drawn. But then I looked at the desk. I had left my laptop sitting in the center of the desk, parallel to the edge, charging. I had stacked the remaining papers, the ones Colleen hadn't ripped neatly to the left of it. Now the laptop was sitting at a 45-degree angle. The screen was open. I had left it closed. And the papers were gone. I rushed over to the desk. The space where the evidence had been was empty. I touched the trackpad of the laptop to wake it. The password field was active. Someone had tried to log in. Incorrect password attempts, 5. System locked for 60 minutes. They had come back. While I was running, while I was trying to clear my head, they had used a key, maybe a spare from the front desk, claiming to be me. Or maybe Colleen had picked the lock and they had come in to scrub the drive. They had taken the physical papers. They thought that by removing the paper trail, they were safe. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. This wasn't just a family dispute anymore. This was active suppression of evidence. They were scared, and scared people are dangerous. I looked around the room. Had they planted something? Had they taken anything else? My gaze fell on the nightstand. My iPad was there, but it was moved. It was facing the bed. I walked over to it. I didn't touch it. I looked closely at the camera lens. There was a tiny piece of clear tape over the lens, but it was my tape. I kept tape over my cameras, but the tape was peeled back slightly at the corner. I turned around. I looked at the door. I looked at the desk. They didn't just want the papers. They wanted to know what I had. They wanted to know if I had sent the files to anyone else. I grabbed my phone. I dialed Mr. Vance immediately, ignoring the time. "Mr. Vance?" I said when he answered, his voice groggy. "Ms. Turner, it is late." "They broke into my room," I said. "They stole the physical documents. They tried to hack my laptop." There was a pause. The sleep vanished from his voice. "Get out of there," he said. "Do not sleep in that room tonight." "Do you have somewhere else to go?" "No," I said. "I am in Duluth. My family is the only network I have here." "Then lock the door," he said. "Push the dresser in front of it. And Ms. Turner." "Yes." "The digital copies you sent me, I uploaded them to a secure cloud server an hour ago. Let them steal the paper. They are digging their own grave." "I know," I said. "But Mr. Vance, they didn't just take the papers. What else? I looked at the screen of my laptop again. There was a sticky note attached to the screen that I hadn't noticed before because it was the same color as the wallpaper. I peeled it off. It was handwriting I recognized. It was Evan's, scrawled, messy, angry. Don't start a war you can't finish. Final warning. They left a note, I whispered. Get the dresser, Mr. Vance said. Now. I spent the night with a heavy oak dresser shoved against the door. I did not sleep. I sat in the armchair facing the entrance, watching the handle, waiting for it to turn. Every creak of the hotel settling, every footstep in the corridor, sounded like an invasion. I was no longer a guest at a wedding. I was a witness in protective custody, guarding the only asset I had left, the truth. When the sun finally rose, bleeding a pale, bruised light through the curtains, I felt a strange sense of detachment. The fear from the night before had calcified into a cold, hard resolve. I showered, dressed in a sharp navy blazer and trousers armor for the day ahead, and went downstairs. I did not go to the bridal suite. I went straight to the security office. The general manager, Mr. Henderson, was already there, looking weary. He started to give me the standard guest privacy speech when I asked to see the hallway camera logs, but I cut him off. Mr. Henderson, I said, placing my business card on his desk. It wasn't my lawyer's card. It was mine. Compliance coordinator. My room was entered illegally last night. Documents containing sensitive financial data were stolen. Unless you want to be named as a co-defendant in a negligence lawsuit regarding the security of your guests' data, I suggest you show me the footage. He hesitated, then sighed, and turned his monitor. We scrolled back, 10:42 in the evening. I watched on the screen as a figure approached my door. It was Evan. He looked agitated. He knocked, waited, then used a keycard. He went in. He came out 4 minutes later, holding a stack of papers. I knew that part. I had found the empty desk. Keep scrolling, I said. I want to see the rest of the night. Mr. Henderson fast-forwarded. The hallway remained empty for hours. Shadows lengthened and shortened as the automatic lights flickered. Then, the timestamp hit 2:12 in the morning. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. A figure stepped out of the elevator. It was smaller than Evan. The person was wearing a long wool trench coat and had short, impeccably styled hair that even at that hour looked rigid. It was Aunt Colleen. She didn't knock. She didn't look frantic. She walked to my door with the silent precision of a predator. She stood there for a long time. She leaned in, pressing her ear against the wood. She knew I was in there. She was listening to see if I was asleep. On the screen, I saw her reach into her pocket. She pulled out a key card. She slotted it into the lock. The light on the handle flashed green. She pushed. The door moved an inch, then hit the dresser I had barricaded it with. She didn't shove it. She didn't try to force entry. She simply stood there, staring at the crack in the door for a full 10 seconds. Then, she let the door click shut. She smoothed the front of her coat, turned around, and walked back to the elevator. She has a master key, I said quietly. That is impossible, Mr. Henderson said, though he looked pale. Only staff have master keys. She has been managing this wedding for months, I said. She has charmed your staff. She has been behind the front desk. She has access. I stood up. Burn a copy of that footage to a drive for me. Now. I walked back to the lobby, my heart beating a slow, heavy rhythm. Colleen coming to my room at 2 in the morning wasn't about the rental contract. Evan had already taken that. She had come back for something else. I sat down in the hotel cafe, finding a table in the back corner. I opened my laptop. A new email had arrived at 6:45 in the morning. Subject security alert. Password reset attempt. From a state secure portal, a request was made to reset the password for the account associated with the estate of Martha Turner. If this was not you, please contact support immediately. I stared at the screen. They had the physical papers. They had the wedding money. Why were they still trying to break into the estate portal? The $5,000 transfer Evan had made yesterday was bad. But it was just petty theft in the grand scheme of things. If they were still digging, still trying to get into the administrative side of the account, it meant there was something in there they needed to hide. Something bigger than a catering bill. They weren't looking for money to take. They were looking for a record to delete. I needed to know what my grandmother had actually left behind. I needed a source who wasn't compromised. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found a number I hadn't dialed in 3 years. Uncle Grant. Grant was my father's older brother. He was the black sheep. Not because he was a criminal, but because he was honest. He had cut ties with the family finances a decade ago. Calling my father a spineless enabler and Colleen a vulture in silk. I hit call. He answered on the 4th ring. His voice was gravelly, sounding like he was already mid-cigarette. This better be important. Hazel, I am fishing. It is important. Uncle Grant, I said. I am at Evan's wedding. My condolences, he grunted. I need to know about Grandma's will, I said. Specifically, the part Colleen manages. I found irregularities. There was a long silence on the line. I heard the wind whistling in the background, probably off a lake somewhere far away from this madness. You found the hole, didn't you? Grant asked. I found debt in my name, I said. But now they are trying to scrub the estate records. What are they hiding? Grant, your grandmother called me 2 weeks before she died, Grant said, his voice losing its edge and becoming somber. She was lucid. She told me she had set up a specific sub-trust for you. She knew your parents wouldn't help you with a down payment on a house or a wedding. She put $50,000 into a separate bond, aimed to mature when you turned 30. I nearly dropped the phone. $50,000. I was 33. I had never seen a dime. I had been eating ramen and working overtime while $50,000 with my name on it was sitting in an account controlled by my aunt. She told me, Grant continued, that she made Colleen the executor because Colleen promised to invest it aggressively for the family. I told Martha she was making a mistake. I told her, if you die, Colleen will be the first one to go through your pockets. But Martha wanted to believe in the sisterhood. She wanted to believe everyone was good. Where is the money? Grant, I whispered. That is the question, he said. If I had to guess, it is on your mom's wrist. It is in Evan's car. It is on Colleen's back. They didn't steal it all at once. Hazel. They likely bled it dry. $500 here, $1,000 there, labeled as administrative fees or maintenance expenses. They think because they are family. The money belongs to the collective, and the collective means them. I am going to burn them down, I said. Good, Grant said. Martha would have wanted you to. She was soft, but she hated a liar. Go get what is yours, kid. I hung up. I sat there, looking at the coffee I hadn't touched. $50,000. That wasn't just theft. That was my life. That was the down payment I couldn't make 2 years ago. That was the vacation I never took. That was the safety net I never had. My phone buzzed. A text from Evan. Stop asking questions. Stop talking to the staff. You are embarrassing us. Just shut up and smile today. We will talk about everything after the ceremony. I promise. After the ceremony. That was their strategy. Get the ring on the finger. Get the photos taken. Get the social validation locked in. Once Evan was married, once the deed was done, they figured I would lose my leverage. They figured I wouldn't sue a newlywed. They figured I would just absorb the loss like I always did. I didn't reply. I opened the app for the video conference I had scheduled. Mr. Vance, the lawyer, was online. Good morning, Ms. Turner, he said. He looked fresh, sharp, ready for a fight. I have the preliminary access logs from the court. Did you find the sub-trust? I asked. I did, he said. The Hazel Marie Turner Educational and Advancement Fund. It was established 4 years ago. Current balance, Mr. Vance looked at his notes. He didn't flinch. $12.43. I closed my eyes. I felt a tear hot and sharp slide down my cheek. I wasn't sad. I was furious. And the withdrawals? I asked. Systematic, he said. "Starting 2 months after your grandmother's passing. Labeled as reimbursement for care, legal fees, and recently, a large withdrawal of $15,000 labeled property maintenance that coincides with the deposit for the Harbor Stone Hotel. They used my inheritance to pay for the venue," I said. "And when that ran out, they used my credit identity to pay for the rest." "Exactly," Mr. Vance said. "It is a Ponzi scheme, Ms. Turner, and you are the only investor. What do we do?" "We show up," he said. "I am flying in. I will be at the hotel at 8:30. The meeting is at 9. Do not let them corner you alone before then." "I won't," I said. I closed the laptop. I needed to get my things. I had to check out of that room. I wasn't staying another night under a roof where my family had a master key. I went back up to the room. The dresser was still where I had left it, pushed back just enough for me to squeeze in. The room felt violated. The air was stale. I opened my suitcase on the bed to pack. I threw my clothes in haphazardly. I just wanted to leave. I reached into the side pocket of the suitcase, the mesh lining where I usually kept my spare socks. My fingers brushed against something stiff. Paper. I frowned. I hadn't put any paper in there. I pulled it out. It was a piece of heavy, expensive cardstock, the kind used for the wedding invitations. It was folded once. I opened it. There was a message written in black ink. It wasn't Evan's scrawl. It wasn't Colleen's looping cursive. It was block letters. Artificial. Deliberate. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Accounting review. I stared at it. I had set the meeting for 9. I had told them 9, but I hadn't told them where, and I certainly hadn't put a note in my own suitcase. This wasn't a reminder. This was a receipt. It meant that when Colleen was in my room at 2:12 in the morning, or when Evan was in here at 10:42, they hadn't just taken things. They had left this. It was a taunt, or a threat. It was their way of saying, "We know what you are planning. We will be there, and we are going to crush you." I flipped the card over. On the back, in smaller letters, was a single line. "Bring the ring." I froze. Bring the ring. I didn't have the ring. Colleen had the ring, or she said she lost it. Why would they tell me to bring the ring, unless they were going to frame me for stealing it? The realization hit me like a physical blow. Colleen had said the ring was misplaced. She had told me that yesterday, but if she told the police that I had taken it, if she told them that I was the one who looted the estate, she was going to flip the script. She was going to say that I was the one who stole the identity, that I was the one who drained the account, and that I had the ring. And here was this note, planted in my luggage. If security had searched my room, they would have found a note referencing an accounting review and the ring. They were building a case against me. I gripped the cardstock until it bent. "You want a review?" I whispered to the empty room. "Fine, let's review everything." There is a specific kind of silence that falls over a room when a bomb has been armed, but the timer has not yet started ticking. That was the silence I had lived in for the last 48 hours. When I stood at the rehearsal dinner and said, "I can't wait for tomorrow." Everyone assumed I was offering a generic platitude about nuptial joy. They thought I was talking about the vows, the cake, and the first dance. They were wrong. I said that sentence with the precision of a sniper pulling a trigger. I knew exactly what tomorrow meant to Aunt Colleen, and it had nothing to do with white dresses. See, I had not just hired Mr. Vance to defend me, I had hired him to go on the offensive. At 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon, exactly 2 hours before the rehearsal dinner began, Mr. Vance had sent a certified email to the executor of my grandmother's estate. The subject line was simple: Notice of Mandatory Trust Accounting and Audit. He had carbon copied me. And he had sent it to Colleen's primary email address, the one that chimed on her phone every time a message came in. The email demanded a full, line-by-line ledger of all assets, withdrawals, and transfers for the last 24 months, to be presented at 9 in the morning on the day of the wedding. So when I looked Colleen in the eye and said, "I can't wait for tomorrow," I wasn't being polite. I was letting her know that I knew about the email. I was letting her know that the clock had run out. Her reaction, the frozen posture, the trembling champagne glass, was not the reaction of a woman worried about a wedding glitch. It was the reaction of a woman who realized that her 2-year-long shell game was about to crash into a wall of forensic accounting. I sat in the quiet of the hotel lobby, hours before the ceremony was scheduled to begin, and finally put the last piece of the puzzle together. For the last day, I had been asking myself why. Why steal my identity? Why risk a felony for a party? Colleen was greedy. Yes, but she wasn't stupid. Identity theft leaves a trail. But then I looked at the dates again. I pulled up the spreadsheet I had created. June 15th, a withdrawal of $10,000 from the estate account. The memo said, wedding venue deposit. June 20th, the withdrawal was reversed. The money went back into the account. Why put it back? Because she needed to show a balance. She likely had to print a statement for my mother or Evan to prove the money was there. She was robbing Peter to pay Paul. But Peter was also broke. She had drained the real cash years ago. The $50,000 my grandmother left me gone. The main inheritance gone, spent on her lifestyle, her car, her image. But she had promised to pay for Evan's wedding to maintain her status as the benevolent matriarch. When the bills came due, she didn't have the liquid cash in the estate. She couldn't write a check from an empty account. So, she created a new source of funds, me. She used my credit to pay the vendors directly. She opened the loans in my name, paid the hotel, paid the florist, and paid the caterer. Then, she could tell Evan and my parents, "Don't worry, the estate handled it," while the estate account sat empty and dormant, untouched, maintaining the illusion of solvency in case anyone asked for a quick glance at the balance. It was brilliant in its cruelty. She wasn't just stealing my future. She was using my credit score to plaster over the hole she had dug in our family's legacy. I needed to confirm this. I needed one more witness before the 9 o'clock execution. I checked the time. It was 7 in the morning. I texted Kira. "I need to see you. Not about the drama. About the facts." Room 302. 5 minutes. She arrived in 4. She was wearing a silk robe that said "Bride" on the back in glittery letters. But her face was scrubbed clean of makeup, and she looked exhausted. "Hazel," she said, closing the door behind her. "Evan is freaking out. He says you are threatening to call the police. He says you are having a breakdown." "I am not having a breakdown, Kira," I said calmly. "I am conducting an audit. Come here." I gestured to the laptop screen. "I need you to tell me something," I said. "And I need you to be honest. Because your financial future depends on it. Did your father ask to see the receipts for the venue?" Kira hesitated, wrapping her arms around herself. "Yes, my dad is meticulous. He wanted to verify the tax liabilities for the gift amounts. And what did Colleen show him?" "She showed him a spreadsheet," Kira said. "She wouldn't give him the raw bank statements. She said they were confidential because of the trust structure, but she showed him a printout of a wire transfer confirmation." "A wire transfer?" I repeated. "Did she show him the source of the wire?" "No," Kira said, her eyes widening. "She just showed the confirmation number and the amount. She said it came from the Turner Family Trust." I turned the laptop so she could see the document Mr. Vance had uploaded overnight. It was the subpoenaed record from the lending company. North Star. "Look at this," I said. Kira leaned in. "Transfer source North Star Lending. Borrower Hazel M. Turner. Beneficiary Harborstone Hotel." "She didn't wire money from the trust, Kira," I said. "She took out a high-interest loan in my name and wired it directly to the hotel. Then she showed your dad the receipt from the hotel to prove it was paid. But she hid where the money came from." Kira sat down on the edge of the bed. She looked sick. "It is a Ponzi scheme," she whispered. "My dad said it felt like circular billing. He said the money was moving too fast between too many accounts." "It is worse than that," I said. "The estate is empty. There is no trust. There is no safety net. You are marrying into a bankruptcy, Kira. And right now, they are trying to pin the debt on me so that when the dust settles, they can say I was the one who was irresponsible." "But why?" she asked, tears welling up. "Why ruin you?" "Because I am the expendable one," I said. "Evan is the prize. Colleen is the manager. I am just the compliance officer. They thought I would be too ashamed to make a scene. They thought I would quietly pay the debt to save the family name. Kira looked at me. The fear in her eyes was replaced by a sudden, sharp anger. My dad is downstairs, she said. He is having coffee in the atrium. He has a folder of his own. He has been tracking the vendor payments. Good, I said. Tell him to be ready at 9. Ready for what? For the truth. I said. Kira stood up. She smoothed her robe. She didn't look like a nervous bride anymore. She looked like a woman who had just realized she was about to sign a contract with a fraudulent partner. I will talk to him, she said. And Hazel Evan, he isn't innocent in this. Is he? I looked at her. I couldn't lie. Not anymore. He logged into the estate portal yesterday. Kira. He authorized a transfer. He knows there is no money. He is just hoping the wedding happens before the music stops. She nodded, a single sharp jerk of her head, and walked out. I sat back in the chair. I thought back to the rehearsal dinner again, to the moment I saw Colleen's face. I replayed the scene in my mind, stripping away my own emotions and watching it like surveillance footage. I had said, "Can't wait for tomorrow." Colleen had frozen, but then, as I walked away, I had heard her murmur something. At the time, I thought she was speaking to my mother. But now, realizing she had received the audit notice just minutes before, I understood who she was talking to. She was talking to herself. Tomorrow is not allowed to happen. She didn't mean the wedding. She meant the audit. She meant the 9 o'clock meeting. That was why they broke into my room. That was why they stole the papers. That was why they left the threatening note. They wanted to scare me into canceling the meeting. They wanted me to pack my bags and run. If I left, if I didn't show up, they could spin the narrative. They could tell Mr. Vance I was unstable. They could tell the family I had stolen the ring and fled. They could delay the audit, buy themselves another week, another month to move money around. They were betting on my cowardice. They were betting on the fact that Hazel Turner always retreated when the yelling started. I looked at the clock. 8:15. I wasn't retreating. I stood up and walked to the mirror. I fixed my blazer. I checked my phone. Mr. Vance was in the lobby. I picked up my bag. I didn't have the physical papers anymore. Evan had stolen those. But I had the truth. I had the digital logs. And I had something they didn't have. I had nothing left to lose. I walked out of the hotel room, leaving the door wide open. I didn't need to lock it anymore. There were no secrets left to guard. I took the elevator down to the conference level. The hallway was quiet, lined with plush carpeting and tasteful art. The door to the Harborstone Executive Suite, the room I had booked for the meeting, was closed. I pushed it open. Mr. Vance was already there, sitting at the head of the mahogany table. He had his laptop open and a portable projector set up. "Good morning, Ms. Turner," he said. "Are we expecting guests?" "Yes," I said. "All of them. And if they don't come—" "Oh, they will come," I said. Curiosity is a powerful thing, but fear is stronger. I connected my phone to the projector. I pulled up the first slide. It wasn't a spreadsheet. It wasn't a bank statement. It was the photo I had taken in Colleen's room. The tracing paper with my signature practiced over and over again. "Let's leave this on the screen," I said. At 8:55, the door opened. It wasn't Colleen. It wasn't my parents. It was Mr. Randall Bennett, Kira's father. He walked in with a grim expression, holding a cup of black coffee. Kira was right behind him, dressed in jeans and a sweater, looking pale but determined. "Ms. Turner," Randall said, nodding to me. "Kira told me we might find some clarity in this room. Take a seat, Mr. Bennett," I said. "You are right on time." At 8:59, the door opened again. This time, the air in the room changed. Colleen walked in. She was wearing a structured pink suit, her hair perfectly coiffed, her face a mask of aggressive pleasantness. My mother was behind her, looking red-eyed and anxious. My father was staring at the floor. And Evan. Evan stopped in the doorway when he saw the projector screen. He saw the tracing paper. He saw his own name written next to mine in Colleen's handwriting. He looked at me. His eyes were wide, pleading. "Don't do this," they said. I looked back at him. My face was a stone. "I am not doing this." My eyes said back, "You did this." "Good morning, everyone," I said, my voice steady and loud enough to fill the room. "Thank you for joining us. I believe we have some accounting discrepancies to review before the wedding march begins." Colleen laughed, a brittle, high-pitched sound. "Oh, Hazel. Really? A PowerPoint presentation on your brother's wedding day? This is pathetic." "Sit down, Colleen," I said. It wasn't a request. It was an order. She bristled. "I will not be talked to like—" "I said sit down," I repeated, cutting her off. "Or I can call the 2 police officers who are currently waiting in the lobby to come up and escort you to a seat. Mr. Vance has them on speed dial." Colleen's mouth snapped shut. She looked at Mr. Vance, then at Randall Bennett, then at the screen. She sat. "Excellent," I said. "Now, let's talk about tomorrow, because tomorrow is here." The timeline of a disaster is rarely a straight line. It is a series of tremors, small at first, then violent, leading up to the final collapse. If the confrontation in my hotel room was the first tremor, the scene that unfolded later that night in the Bennett family's private suite was the earthquake that finally split the ground beneath my feet. It was 11 o'clock at night. The rehearsal dinner was over. The guests were drinking in the lobby bar, oblivious to the fact that the wedding they were toasting was being financed by a felony. I had left my room after the initial confrontation with my family, clutching the digital evidence on a flash drive that I kept on a lanyard around my neck. I knew my family would try to spin the narrative before morning. I knew my mother was probably already whispering in people's ears about how unstable I was. I had to get to the truth before they got to the reputation. I texted Kira, "Suite 404, now, bring your father." I stood outside the door of the Bennett suite, taking deep, steadying breaths. This was the point of no return. Handing over these documents was an act of war. It was a betrayal of the blood bond that my parents had preached to me since I was a child. But as I touched the cold plastic of the flash drive, I reminded myself they broke the bond first. They broke it when they signed my name. The door opened. It was Randall Bennett. He was still in his suit trousers and a crisp white shirt. Though his tie was undone, he held a tumbler of scotch. He looked at me not with warmth, but with the appraising eye of a man who managed multi-million-dollar portfolios. "Ms. Turner," he said, "Kira said you have something that couldn't wait." "I do," I said. "May I come in?" Kira was sitting on the sofa, her knees pulled up to her chest. She looked terrified. When I walked in, she didn't smile. She just watched me, waiting to see if I was the villain my family said I was, or the savior she hoped I might be. I didn't waste time with pleasantries. I didn't accept a drink. I walked to the coffee table and set my laptop down. I plugged in the drive. "Mr. Bennett," I said, "you asked for financial transparency. You didn't get it. Tonight, I am giving it to you." I opened the files. I showed him everything. The credit monitoring alerts, the IP logs from the rental company showing the digital signature coming from my parents' house, the screenshots of the estate portal showing the unauthorized transfer Evan had made just hours ago, the buy now, pay later receipt for the diamond earrings Colleen was currently wearing. Randall didn't speak. He put on a pair of reading glasses and leaned in. He scrolled through the PDFs. He checked the timestamps. He cross-referenced the amounts. The silence in the room was heavy, broken only by the clicking of the trackpad. After 10 minutes, Randall sat back. He took off his glasses. His face was gray. "This is—" He paused, searching for the word. "Systematic." "Yes," I said. "This isn't just borrowing," Randall said, his voice hardening. "This is structuring. They are layering debts to hide the lack of capital. They are using your credit to fund the front-end costs because the back-end the estate is insolvent." "Exactly," I said. Kira made a small, choked sound. "So the wedding, it is all stolen money. Every flower, I said gently. Every chair, every bottle of wine, it is all being paid for by loans taken out in my name without my consent. Randall stood up. He walked to the window, looking out at the dark lake. When he turned back, his expression was terrifying. It wasn't the anger of a father, it was the fury of a businessman who realized he had been played. "Get them up here," Randall said to Kira. "Dad." "Call Evan," Randall commanded. "Call your future mother-in-law. Call that aunt. Get them in this room right now. I want to look them in the eye." Kira picked up her phone with shaking hands. 20 minutes later, they arrived. My mother came in first, looking flustered and indignant, clutching her purse as if she were afraid someone would snatch it. My father followed, looking weary. Evan walked in with a swagger that was visibly forced, his jaw set tight. Colleen brought up the rear, and to my amazement, she had touched up her makeup. She looked ready for a photo shoot, not an interrogation. When they saw me standing by the fireplace, the mood in the room shifted instantly. "Oh, for heaven's sake!" my mother spat, dropping the act immediately. "She is here, Randall. I apologize. Hazel is having an episode. We have been trying to manage her all day." "Sit down, Joyce," Randall said. His voice was like a whip crack. My mother froze. She looked at Randall, then at the laptop open on the table. She sat. "We are not here to discuss Hazel's mental health," Randall said, remaining standing. "We are here to discuss the $75,000 of unsecured debt that has been accrued in the last 6 weeks to pay for this event." Evan stepped forward. "Randall, listen, I can explain. We have some liquidity issues with the trust right now, so we just moved some things around." "You didn't move things around, son." Randall cut him off. "You moved your sister's identity around." He pointed to the screen. "I am looking at a financing agreement for the venue. It is in Hazel's name. Hazel says she didn't sign it. Did she sign it, Evan?" The room went dead silent. Evan looked at me. His eyes were dark, filled with a mixture of panic and hatred. He knew he was cornered. And like a trapped animal, he decided to bite. "She gave us permission," Evan lied. The words came out smooth, practiced. "She told us months ago we could use her credit if we needed to. She said she wanted to help, and now she is cold feet. Now she is jealous because the attention isn't on her." My mother jumped on the lifeline. "That is exactly it," she cried, turning to Kira. "Oh, honey, you have to understand. Hazel has always been difficult. She has always been envious of Evan. She is 33, she is single. She lives alone in that cold city. She sees her brother getting everything she wants, love, a celebration, a family, and she just snapped. She is making this up to ruin your happiness." I stood there, listening to my own mother rewrite my history. "I didn't sign it," I said quietly. "You did," my mother shouted, standing up and pointing a shaking finger at me. "You told us at Christmas, you said, 'Whatever you need for Evan.' We took you at your word. And now you are trying to frame your aunt after everything she has done for us." It was a masterclass in gaslighting. If I hadn't had the IP logs, if I hadn't had the hard evidence, I might have questioned my own sanity. They said it with such conviction. Randall looked at Colleen. "Mrs. Turner, you are the executor of the estate, correct?" "I am," Colleen said. She sat with her legs crossed, calm and composed. She offered Randall a sad, sympathetic smile. "And I am heartbroken that it has come to this. Truly, I tried to shield Hazel from the complexities of the estate finances, but she has always been suspicious, paralyzed by scarcity mindset. Really. The complexities," Randall repeated. "Okay, let's talk complexity. Why does a family trust need to use a high-interest consumer loan to pay a hotel deposit? Why not just liquidate a bond?" This was the trap. Randall was testing her. Colleen didn't blink. "Well," she said, her voice dropping into a confidential, knowledgeable tone. "As you know, Randall, we are in the middle of a strategic reallocation. The primary corpus is tied up in illiquid real estate holdings, and with the current interest rate environment, we didn't want to realize a loss by selling early. The consumer loan was a bridge strategy, tax efficient, really. When you consider the capital gains implications, it sounded perfect. It sounded smart. It sounded like something a wealth manager would say. But Randall Bennett was a CFO. He stared at her. "Colleen," he said softly, "the current capital gains tax rate hasn't changed in 3 years, and you can borrow against a portfolio at 4%. You don't use a 25% APR credit card loan for tax efficiency." Colleen's smile faltered. Just a fraction. "We have our methods," she said stiffly. "Your method is fraud," Randall said. "How dare you?" my father shouted. He stood up, his face purple. "We are guests in your hotel block. We are your in-laws. You take the word of this jealous girl over the word of the entire family." He gestured at me as if I were garbage. "Look at her," my father yelled. "She has been miserable all week. She refused to help with the flowers. She refused to help with the guests. She has been skulking around, spying on us. She is sick. Randall, she is sick with envy." Kira looked at me. Her eyes were wide, darting between her father and my screaming parents. The doubt was creeping in. That was the power of their united front. They were loud. They were emotional. And there were 3 of them against 1 of me. Evan walked over to me. He stood close, invading my space again. "You are loving this, aren't you?" he hissed, low enough that only I could hear. "You love being the victim. You love making us look bad so you can feel superior. That is your whole life, isn't it, Hazel? The martyr, the one who suffers so much." The words hit me like a physical slap. You love being the victim. It was the ultimate inversion of the truth. I had spent my life trying not to be a victim. I had worked 2 jobs. I had paid my own way. I had stayed silent to keep the peace. And because I finally stood up, because I finally said stop, I was the villain. I looked at Evan. I saw the fear behind his aggression. He was terrified that the check was about to bounce. "I don't want to be a victim, Evan," I said, my voice steady. "I want to be solvent." "Get out," my mother screamed. "Get out of this room. You are not my daughter right now. You are a saboteur." The door to the suite had been left slightly ajar. I could hear voices in the hallway. Other guests were slowing down, listening to the shouting. "Is everything okay in there?" someone called out. My mother instantly turned to the door, her face transforming into a mask of tragic suffering. "It is my daughter," she sobbed, loud enough for the hallway to hear. "She is having a breakdown. She is trying to cancel the wedding." The murmurs outside grew. I could feel the judgment of the invisible crowd, the crazy sister, the jealous spinster. My family had successfully turned the narrative. In the court of public opinion, I had already lost. Randall looked at me. He looked at the paperwork. He looked at my hysterical mother. "Enough," Randall said. "Everyone out, now." "Randall, please," Colleen said, standing up gracefully. "Don't let her delusions affect tomorrow. The wedding will be beautiful. The bills are paid. That is all that matters." "Out," Randall repeated. My family filed out. Evan bumped my shoulder hard as he passed. My mother didn't look at me. Colleen paused at the door, gave me one last, chilling look, a look that promised retribution, and left. I was alone with Randall and Kira. "I am sorry," I said. "I didn't want to bring this into your suite." "You didn't bring it," Randall said, rubbing his temples. "They brought it." He looked at me. "My daughter loves your brother. I don't know why, but she does. If I cancel this wedding tonight, based on your word and these PDFs, she will hate me, and your family will spin it that I am the monster." "I know," I said. "But," Randall said, his eyes hard, "I will not let her marry into a crime scene." He looked at the clock. "You have a meeting scheduled for 9 tomorrow, he asked. "Yes," I said, "with the estate attorney and a forensic accountant." "Make sure it happens," Randall said, "because I am going to be there, and I am going to ask Colleen that tax question again, and if she stumbles, if she lies, the wedding is off. At the altar if necessary." She will lie, I said. Then be ready to prove it, he said. I nodded. I unplugged my flash drive. Thank you, Mr. Bennett, I said. Don't thank me yet, he said. The hardest part is still coming. I walked out of the suite. The hallway was empty now, but the air felt charged, electric. I felt the phantom eyes of the guests behind every closed door. There she goes, the jealous one. I walked back toward my room. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. It was a text message. Sender. Unknown number. I didn't recognize the digits, but I recognized the area code. It was a prepaid burner number. I opened the message. If you open your mouth tomorrow, I will tell the police you were the one who authorized the transfers. I have your old laptop. I have your passwords. I will make it look like you stole the money to pay off your own debts, and we were just covering for you. Don't test me. I will destroy you to save him. I stopped walking. The sender wasn't listed, but the syntax was unmistakable. It wasn't Evan. Evan was too hot-headed. This was cold. This was calculated. It was Colleen. She was threatening to frame me. She was saying she would plant evidence on my old devices I had left at my parents' house years ago to make it look like I was the embezzler. I stared at the screen. Fear flared up, hot and bright. If she had my old laptop, she could plant anything. She could doctor emails. She could create a paper trail that pointed straight to me. But then, the fear turned into something else. It turned into focus. She was threatening me because she was scared. She was threatening me because she knew that at 9 o'clock, she wouldn't be able to talk her way out of a bank statement. I typed a reply. I didn't send it to the burner number. I opened my email app. I composed a new message to Mr. Vance. Subject tomorrow. They are threatening to frame me. They claim to have my old devices. Please be ready to request chain of custody logs for all digital evidence. I am not backing down. 9 a.m. No delays. I hit send. Then I walked to the elevator. I wasn't going to my room. I remembered the note I had found earlier. Bring the ring. I didn't have the ring, but I knew who did. And if they wanted a war, I was going to make sure the battlefield was lit up so bright that there were no shadows left for them to hide in. I went to the lobby. I sat in the chair facing the front door. I would wait here all night if I had to. I would wait until the sun came up, because tomorrow was coming, and for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of the daylight. The conference room at 9 o'clock in the morning felt less like a meeting space and more like an operating theater. The air was sterile, cold, and smelled faintly of floor polish and stale coffee. Outside the heavy double doors, the Harborstone Hotel was buzzing with the frantic, joyful energy of a wedding day. Bellhops were rushing carts of flowers across the lobby. Guests were greeting each other with squeals of delight near the elevators. But inside the room, the atmosphere was dead silent. I sat at the end of the long mahogany table. To my right sat Mr. Vance, my attorney, who had flown in from Minneapolis on the red-eye. Next to him was a woman I had only met 10 minutes ago, a forensic accountant named Sarah, who worked with the fraud division. She had a laptop open and a face that suggested she had seen every variety of human greed imaginable. At exactly 9 o'clock, the doors opened. They walked in like a funeral procession. Aunt Colleen led the way, wearing a silk dress in a soft lavender shade, her hair sprayed into a helmet of perfection. She held her head high, but her eyes were darting around the room, assessing the threats. My mother and father followed, looking haggard, their faces puffy from a sleepless night of arguing. And finally, Evan. He was wearing his tuxedo pants and a white undershirt, his bow tie undone around his neck. He looked like a man walking to the gallows. Behind them came Randall Bennett and Kira. Kira was wearing her wedding dress. It was a shock to see the white lace and satin in this grim room. She hadn't put on her veil yet, and her face was bare of makeup. But the dress was a massive, voluminous statement. She didn't look festive. She looked like she was wearing armor. She walked past Evan without looking at him and stood next to her father. "Please, take a seat," Mr. Vance said, his voice calm and authoritative. "We don't have time for this," Evan snapped, though he sat down heavily. The photographer is waiting in the atrium. Can we just sign whatever papers Hazel wants, so she stops throwing a tantrum? We are not here to sign papers for the photographer, Mr. Turner, Mr. Vance said. We are here to determine the validity of the financial contracts underpinning this event. Colleen cleared her throat. She placed her designer handbag on the table with a sharp thud. This is a family misunderstanding, she said, directing her gaze at Randall Bennett, ignoring me entirely. We are happy to reimburse any discrepancies, but frankly, bringing in lawyers is an overreaction. I think it would be best if we handled this privately, in the bridal suite, without outsiders. She gestured dismissively at the forensic accountant. This room is fine, Randall said. His voice was granite. And these aren't outsiders. They are auditors. And until they are satisfied, my daughter does not sign a marriage license. Kira nodded. I want to hear it. Colleen, I want to hear where the money came from. Colleen's smile tightened. I told you. Kira, it came from the family trust. I just had to use some creative financing vehicles to access the liquidity. Ms. Turner, the forensic accountant, Sarah, spoke up. Her voice was dry and cut through the room like a razor. We have reviewed the estate records for Martha Turner. The current liquid balance of the trust is $12.43. A gasp went through the room. My mother put a hand to her mouth. That is impossible, my father blustered. Mother left a substantial portfolio. She did, Sarah continued, turning her laptop screen around so everyone could see. And over the last 24 months, that portfolio was systematically liquidated. The funds were transferred to a personal checking account in the name of Colleen Turner, labeled as administrative fees and consulting. There is no trust left to finance a wedding. So, Mr. Vance interjected, looking straight at Evan, when the money ran out, a new source was needed. That is when the credit accounts in Hazel Turner's name were opened. That is a lie, Colleen said quickly. She sat up straighter, her eyes narrowing. This was the moment. I could see her pivot. She looked at me with a mix of pity and accusation. I didn't want to say this, Colleen said, her voice trembling with feigned emotion. I promised myself I would protect Hazel's reputation. But if you are going to drag legal professionals into this, I have to tell the truth. She looked at Randall. Hazel authorized those accounts, Colleen said. She came to me 3 months ago. She was in trouble, gambling debts, I believe, or perhaps it was a bad investment. She begged me to help her manage her finances. She gave me her passwords. She gave me her social security number. She asked me to consolidate her debts under the guise of wedding expenses so she could hide her shame from the family. I was just trying to help her clean up her mess. My mother let out a sob. Oh, Hazel, is that true? Is that why you have been so angry because you were ashamed? It was a performance worthy of an Academy Award. For a second, the room wavered. My father looked at me with disgust. Evan looked hopeful, seizing on the lifeline. Yeah, Evan said, pointing at me. That makes sense. That is why she has been so weird about the money. She is projecting. I sat there, my hands folded on the table. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I felt a strange, icy calm. Are you finished? I asked Colleen. She sniffed, dabbing her eye with a tissue. I am just sorry it had to come out this way. Mr. Vance? I said. Please show Exhibit C. Mr. Vance tapped a key on his laptop. The projector screen on the wall flickered to life. It was a video clip, grainy, black and white, but clear enough. Time: 2:12 in the morning, location hotel hallway, 4th floor. The room watched in silence as Colleen appeared on the screen. She crept to my door. She listened. She used a key card. She entered. She left. If I had authorized you to manage my finances, I said, looking directly at my aunt, why did you break into my room at 2 in the morning to steal the physical copies of the contracts? Colleen's face went pale. I was checking on you. I was worried you were suicidal. And the note? I asked. The note you planted in my suitcase that said, "Bring the ring." Was that also because you were worried about my mental health? I don't know what you are talking about, she stammered. And finally, I said, Exhibit D. Mr. Vance clicked the next slide. It was a screenshot of the text message I had received the night before from the burner phone. If you open your mouth tomorrow, I will tell the police you were the one who authorized the transfers. I will make it look like you stole the money. I will destroy you to save him. We traced the IP of the sender, Mr. Vance said. It pinged from a device connected to the hotel Wi-Fi, specifically, a device registered to the guest in room 214, Colleen Turner. The silence that followed was absolute. My mother stopped crying. She stared at the screen, reading the words, I will destroy you. She looked at her sister. For the first time in her life, she didn't see the benevolent manager. She saw the predator. Colleen, my mother whispered, you threatened her. I was protecting the family, Colleen shrieked. The mask shattered completely. She slammed her hand on the table. Someone had to. You were all useless, you. She pointed at my father. With your bad back and your small pension, you. She pointed at my mother. Living in a fantasy world. And Evan. She looked at Evan. Her eyes softened. But it was a twisted, obsessive softness. I just wanted him to have the day he deserved, she said, her voice cracking. He is special. He is the only one of you who has a chance to be something. I wasn't going to let a few bank numbers stop him from having his moment. I wanted him to win. To win, I repeated. Win what? Colleen a party, a photo op. A life, she screamed at me. The life you were too boring to grab. The life your parents were too poor to give him. I gave him the world. You gave him a felony, Randall Bennett said. His voice was quiet, but it ended the shouting instantly. Randall looked at Evan. Did you know? Randall asked. Evan looked at the table. He looked at the door. He looked at Kira, who was standing there like a statue in white. Evan, Mr. Vance said, his tone dropping to a warning. Before you answer, I should inform you that admitting prior knowledge of these fraudulent applications makes you a co-conspirator. We are filing the police report in 20 minutes. If you speak now, you are confessing. Evan's mouth opened. He looked at his aunt, the woman who had given him the car, the woman who had given him the money, the woman who said she did it all for him to win. He looked at her, and he saw the sinking ship. I didn't know, Evan whispered. Colleen gasped. It was the sound of a heart breaking. Evan, she asked, her voice small. I didn't know, Evan said louder, his voice shaking. She told me the estate handled it. She told me Hazel helped. I didn't know she stole Hazel's identity. I am a victim here too. He threw her under the bus, without hesitation, to save his own skin. He sacrificed the only person who had ever truly fought for him, however twisted that fight was. I watched Colleen's face, the arrogance drained out of her, leaving her looking old and small. She realized then what I had known for years. Evan didn't love anyone but Evan. Coward, Kira said. She stepped forward. She took the diamond engagement ring off her finger, the modern princess-cut diamond that Colleen had bought with my credit. She dropped it on the table. It made a hollow clack sound. I am not marrying you, Kira said. Kira, baby, wait. Evan stood up, reaching for her. We can fix this. My parents will sell the house. We can pay it back. Don't let her ruin us. She didn't ruin us, Kira said, looking at me with a sad respect. She saved me from you. She turned to her father. Let's go. Dad? Randall nodded. He looked at me. Ms. Turner, my legal team will be in touch to assist with the separation of debts. You won't pay a dime of this. They walked out. The wedding dress rustled the sound of a curtain closing on a show that would never open. My mother collapsed. She didn't faint. She just folded in on herself, burying her face in her hands, sobbing not for me, not for the crime, but for the humiliation, for the death of the image she had worshipped. My father sat there, staring at the wall, a man who realized he was bankrupt in every sense of the word. I stood up. Mr. Vance slid a stack of papers toward me. The affidavits, he said, affirming that the signatures are forgeries and requesting the immediate removal of all inquiries from your credit report. I took the pen. I signed my name. Hazel M. Turner. It felt different this time. It didn't feel like a signature of obligation. It felt like I was signing a treaty to end a war. And the estate? I asked. We are filing for an emergency audit and removal of executor, Sarah said. We will find every penny she hid. If there is anything left, we will recover it. I looked at Colleen. She was staring at Evan, who was sitting with his head in his hands, muttering to himself about how unfair this all was. She wasn't looking at me. I didn't exist to her anymore. I was just the instrument of her destruction. I am done, I said. I didn't wait for a response. There was nothing left to say to them. I walked to the door. Hazel, Evan called out. His voice was desperate, panicked. Where are you going? You can't leave us here. Mom is sick. We have to deal with the hotel bill. You have to help us figure this out. I stopped. I turned around, my hand on the brass handle of the door. I don't have to do anything, Evan, I said. I am just a guest, and I believe checkout time is at 11. I walked out. I walked through the lobby. The guests were still there, milling about, waiting for shuttles that would never take them to the ceremony. I walked past the flower arrangements that I had technically paid for. I walked past the sign that said, Evan Kira a Love Story. I pushed through the revolving doors and stepped out into the air. The wind off Lake Superior was fierce. It hit me like a slap, cold and clean and smelling of deep water and pine. It was freezing, but it felt incredible. It felt real. I walked down the concrete path toward the water. My phone was in my pocket. It wasn't buzzing. No texts from Mom demanding money. No calls from Evan begging for a favor. No emails from Colleen pretending to be a lawyer. It was silent. For 33 years, silence had felt like I was being ignored. It felt like I wasn't important enough to be heard. But as I stood there, watching the whitecaps crash against the gray rocks, I realized I had been wrong. This wasn't the silence of abandonment. It was the silence of freedom. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the icy air, and for the first time in my life, I didn't owe anyone a single thing. Thank you so much for listening to Hazel's story. It is a heavy journey, but one that I think needed to be told. I would love to hear from you. Where are you listening to this story from right now? Are you in your car, at work, or maybe relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments below. Let's connect. And if you enjoyed this story and want to hear more tales of justice and family drama, please make sure to subscribe to Maya Revenge Stories. Hit that like button and smash the hype button to help this story reach more people. Your support means the world to me. See you in the next one.